What is the nature of parts? Hi, parts.
We all know the nature of our parts. We're mad.
Number one, they're isolated, separated, have a limited perspective.
Do you want to explain that one?
Limited perspective means that they can't see the whole picture, that they not only can't see the whole picture, but sometimes only see one thing or two things instead of the whole thing. Sad, mad, ashamed. I guess you could put that any emotion in there.
Etc. That's why I put etc. Yes, any emotion, yep. Or thought, because the next one is that cover-up parts are thinkers.
Yes, they are.
They're just like, this is logical, this is my job, I have to clean this up, cover it up, make it like it never happened, this is how we survive. So as the one group, the majority of parts have emotions, the cover-up parts are thinkers. Remember, there's a whole video teaching on that, so because we can't go into it now, but go see the truth about cover-up part 1 and 2.
And we're still learning.
We'll still learn, yes, we're still learning about them. But there are thinker parts and emotional parts.
Yes.
Okay.
There are networks.
Mm-hmm.
There are many parts related to a big event. Don't think you're done because the first part got rescued. There's often a part acting as a guard or representative of the area. Teen and adult parts often have child-age parts connected to them.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we said before. But yeah, so make sure to really understand that there's networks of parts. So if someone has a huge event, if you have a huge event or someone you're praying for, there'll be lots of parts attached to that event. So if someone says, oh, well, I got that part of me rescued, well, there's more that will come, but it will come when God says, okay, now we'll go to this aspect of it. But it can be confusing if people don't know that there's going to be more, because they're like, oh wait, am I going backwards? Or no, this already got resolved, and this should be done because I saw that part, she got free and I feel different, or he got free and I feel different.
But another part.
But there's another part related to that. Like with sexual abuse, there are several groups of parts. There's the ones who feel ashamed, the ones who feel sad, the ones who feel dirty, the ones who feel angry, very angry, the ones who liked it and said, well, this is what I'm going to do, so I'm going to go along with this, and then they feel guilty. And then all those groups of parts are, and that's not even all of them, but all those groups of parts are in conflict with each other. And then, like we said, if that happened to you when you're a child, sexual abuse happened to your child, then by the time you're a teenager, there's going to be issues there with sexuality and what you do, and how that all works. And so there's networks of parts. We already talked. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that there's also a way, again, that has to do with the themes in your life too, why you keep bouncing back into similar situations, because there's just a different dimension of the networks.
Right. Right. So that's good that God went there and rescued 1, 2, 3, a whole group of parts, but don't be surprised when there's more.
Or that you see them later.
Yeah. Yeah. But years later, I mean, today with me, abandonment again. Hi, everybody. You hear me say that every month, but it's true. This is what God's doing, but I'm not like, oh my gosh, didn't I already go through this? No, this is the next step. I'm like, yay, good. I want to get these guys rescued. So we already talked about that the teen and the adult parts often have the child parts related, connected to them, but back up a line, that there's often a part acting as a guard or representative of the area. What that means is the guard part is a protector kind of part. Might be even like slightly older or a few years older than the younger ones, but they are protecting. So God will bring you to that part. They can be like, who are you? They want to push you away, or they've got to test you out. And once then they get truth, and then you rescue a whole bunch of parts behind them. Now, a lot of times when there's a guard or representative part and that part gets free, you don't need to go into detail with all the parts behind them. You'll just see them all come forth too. But you recognize them and you say, and God will point them out to you, and you'll say, oh, well, or sometimes they'll go, I feel like there's other parts, so I'll blow the trumpet. God will have me blow the trumpet in Zion, saying all the parts come free, and I'll see all the other parts. Does there need to be a discussion with them? Most of the time, no, because they were all connected. See that picture there? It's like a network. You're all one person. You're all one person. So if one part gets free and gets truth, then there's a whole bunch that can get free at the same time.
Especially when there's one that a limited perspective part, because, for example, if you were told, oh, you've such good Christian parents and a good upbringing, you've repeated this every time you've repeated about your past, if a 21-year-old part gets free, let's just say, that has been saying that nothing ever bad happened to me before this age. No, that's just a lie. But that guard would just, of course, protect that limited perspective because all they knew is nothing, no harm came.
A good example, thank you, yeah.
So if you have a fear part, there could be lots of other parts attached to that.
Yeah, a part that's fearful. Well, there's two things, and when you asked that question, two things came to my mind. One can be there's a theme of fear because you went through fearful things. So if one part or group of parts was fearful and they get free, later there can be another group of parts that's fearful because it looks like a ribbon that goes through the whole person because you're all one person. So that can happen. But another way it can happen is if, yes, there's one fearful part, you and God go there to depart in you, or someone else helps you, and you go to that part, then there's a whole bunch of other little, usually younger ones, attached, like behind them. But you don't even see the ones that are attached until the truth comes and the rescue happens with the front one.
Well, the one I was thinking of was with my mother. She was so bound up in fear. And so I don't know what happened to her when she was young or whatever. But it seemed like everything she did, there was a motivation of fear there. Whether she was trying to protect us or what.
Right.
It was like there was still that big fear thing there.
Yeah, so that was a theme of fear, sounds like, and plus within that theme you could have a part that's fearful and then have the other ones attached. So it could be both of what I just said within that area. Yes?
I've heard people say, I had a really good childhood and nothing ever bad happened to me.
Right.
That's a cover-up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cover up, or it will like I had said that if we had met and I would say, oh, nothing really bad happened to me, that would be the extreme cover up in my life. And the other way is that people don't understand parts yet. They don't know that God, that a simple incorrect conclusion can make a part. They don't understand it, and it's like, well, everything's not so bad comparatively, but if you compare it to God's normal and what He intended us for it to be. So it's not like you're complaining, but you're just saying, again, it's up to God. You just say, God, just anywhere you want to go, and that's fine. And if there's nothing, there's nothing.
And that described another way at that conference that I went to is that no, you don't compare your upbringing, your childhood to others. You compare it to Eden, and
Right.
And anything other than that is, and sometimes, say, for example, in a controlling home, growing up in something like that, no one's ever screaming, nothing's on fire, but boy, you feel it. Somebody mentioned the walking on eggshells, and there's books written about it. So someone would say, oh, well, you had such a lovely childhood. I don't see any bruises on you, or, nothing happened.
Yeah.
But you could be walking on eggshells, which is abuse.
Right. Okay. Parts must be rescued.
Emphasis on must.
Emphasis on must. It's not okay to not rescue them right away. This is one of your pet peeves. So.
Yeah, to just let them linger.
Right.
Poor little guys.
So someone recognizes the part, and then we go, oh yeah, they know about parts, and they say, oh yeah, this must be a part of me, and then they don't do anything about it. That's what we're talking about. That's not okay, because remember, God, who designed us to be able to separate out, is the one who brings us back together. So to just leave them in limbo, knowing about a part, that's not fair. And see, that's the picture that my parts and former parts picked out. Thank you. Binoculars, because that's a part of you looking to see what you're going to do. Like, you recognize us now, or is she going to... It's like Toy Story, when they look out the window, they're like, what's going on? Is she going to, or are you going to do something about this, or are they just going to ignore me? Guess what? If you ignore a part, you won't rescue them. They're going to either retreat, okay, go back even further, and then you're going to feel them worse, okay?
And they're going to get more uncomfortable.
Yeah, they're going to get more uncomfortable and louder and get angrier, but usually both. They retreat some and then they reorganize and then they come out angrier,
More powerful,
or they make you physically sick.
Yes,
because
they do.
they're not trying to hurt you by making you physically sick. They're just like, we
Wanna get
so need to
rescue
get
attention.
be heard that I want attention. And that's what the parts of me did for me when I was sick. Well, I didn't know about parts yet. but they made themselves known.
May
So-
I say something about this, because I think it's interesting, because Sharon saw this in me the last time we were here, because we recognized a part, or that there must be something here, and she was hiding in a cabinet and whatever else. I love that you did just go in and just rescue, anyway, that whole event, or from a month or two ago. But, I think what's important to know is that a part can be rescued even if the entire memory isn't assembled.
Absolutely.
And so that helped me understand that, because I didn't rescue any parts, because I'm like, well, I don't remember anything yet. I guess God will bring that to mind at some point.
Oh, good point.
And I still haven't a solid memory,
That's okay.
but the part's been rescued. So I know God's got it,
Right.
and I've just trusted Him with the time
It took me months.
that I'll
to
remember, and weird, flashes of scenes, nothing specific, but just a location have come to mind. So I'm like, all right, interesting. But anyway, so
No, that's a
not to
really,
get off
that's a
topic.
really good point, thank you, and like
Because
what
that's
you were.
why I didn't do it. I'm like, well, if I don't remember it, it must not be a part. That's not true.
Right, right. So it's got, that again was the reliance on God. We're relying on God totally through all of this with yourself and with other people. So if He shows you a part or shows someone else a part, okay, you don't have to know the whole story. I mean, that's a really good point. You don't have to know the whole thing, because it might not be able to be accessed right then, but it'll come in pieces, and God will rescue, and He knows how to do it. But
Yeah,
yeah, for you,
because-
it took several months for you to remember the whole
Right.
thing.
And when you're praying for somebody too, they a lot of times we say, does that connect with you? And they'll say no, and we go, okay, that doesn't matter because God's going here anyway.
Right.
So you always go rescue the parts, even if the conscious mind is not registering that, there's a connection
God's
there.
going there, so we're following Him. That's basically it.
Can I just ask a question here? Because this has happened on 2 different occasions. I handled each differently. But in talking to a dear friend that is following God and wants to go everywhere God wants to go, vaguely knows the parts. But just in a discussion, sharing something that you've never heard before, and like I was saying before, sometimes abuse sounds, you don't think it is, but when you say it out loud, you're like,
Yeah.
holy crow.
Right.
So anyway, when you have that happen, and in one circumstance, I was able to stop the person in just a conversation. We weren't in a godly, necessarily situation.
Oh, well, that's another point, is that this happens wherever.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was able to point out and say, oh, wow, I just see something right here, can we go? But then there's another person where I observe a weird kind of a tick or behavior we were talking about a little bit earlier, and I don't know how to address it, because it could almost be hurtful to say, I'm observing a behavior in you, so would you just
Right.
pray that God would let that person see that there's a part? What do you do if you see the part in somebody else, but they aren't even mindful of it?
Yeah, well, praying is right.
Yeah, but
Praying-
with them or just
Well,
apart?
well, you kind of said it 2 different ways, or
Okay.
when we were talking earlier, like the one way of, well, I don't know if this is a part, but I noticed this behavior. If you're noticing a behavior, you're not seeing a specific part, then I would just keep on praying about
Okay,
it.
about it, okay.
So it's not like, oh, you've got this thing about you, but no, you keep on
Yeah.
praying until you actually, once you see the part,
Okay,
I see you, and then
Okay.
the whole responsibility for the whole story is not on you. You are going to
done.
write that part at 5 years old, 6 years old, and you're saying, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm sensing from this part of you. You just go there. And if God wants to open it up more, He will, and then it's up to that person to open up
Okay,
to
gotcha.
it, and it's not your responsibility.
yeah.
But yeah. I didn't think do
Oh, God.
that. Follow God, yes.
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, I don't know what the behavior was, but if God impressed on me at that moment to say, hey, can I
Yeah,
pray
you're
with
right,
you?
You're right.
Then I would pray. It might not be, hey, I see a behavior or I see this or whatever, but I would just pray and then let God show you what comes next.
That's the right answer. Always following God. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, always follow God, what He says.
But if God says, hey, no, just, bring this to me in prayer, because we pray for parts of people all the time and they're not there. They're not participating. God will have us pray for them. So definitely ask Him.
The person doesn't have to, you can do it without them.
Well, that's a good thought, too.
You can start talking to that part of her, and then that gets opened up, and then you can physically talk to that person, and that part, but you've opened it up by talking to the parts, so.
And sometimes you really don't know. It's just like yesterday when David and I prayed for someone. He knows her better than I do, but I knew a little bit of what was going on, and I was like, God. And it's really funny how I know myself well enough to know when I pray, if I start kind of tripping over my words or I feel a little uncomfortable, I'm feeling something that's not. And I have to remind myself, and I was so glad to get your text because you said, you know what you're doing, and all this, and it was after the fact that I was like, that's really what I felt at the time, like, wow, I've done this so many times, why do I feel uncomfortable? And David said, they know and believe God, but they really don't know Him. And I was picking up something that just felt like something in between or whatever. He said, those are the walls. David told me, he said, those are the walls. Because he knows the family. He knew her since she was little. Crawling around the floor. So, I don't know her that well. Only talked to her a few times. But I felt that. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I was feeling was this wall. And it's a wall of protection. But I just said, okay, God, I'm following you. Yes, I don't feel that comfortable with this, but I'm going to keep going. And I only had about 10 minutes, and that was enough for her. But then David and I prayed for almost 45 minutes on the way home because we got stuck in this construction, on 15 traffic that they had everything down to one lane. So it gave us an extra 15 minutes to pray. So God, and David's like, no, it's no big deal.
So
He
then
said,
you together without her present, then knock down the walls and let's open this.
and ended up praying for the whole family.
Okay.
It's like we went into mom and dad and brother and.
Probably because God, it was all connected and that all needed to be loosened up too.
Right, and she has a physical condition. That's what we were praying for.
Afterwards, just as sort of, again, asking in the aspect of helping others, then report all that happened in prayer with David to the person that needed it, or just leave it?
No, I didn't.
Or
tell
say
her
you've
anything.
got something? Okay.
No, because
Again, that's her
sometimes-
following God too, because sometimes you would. Like the other day when I was praying for Joy. Hi, Joy. She's listening to my phone, but when I was praying for her, it was so strong. After you just texted me, my friend Joy's gonna come. I felt so strong in my spirit what I needed to declare, so I started declaring that at home. Okay, it wasn't like, oh, now I've got to do this and this is the rule book. No, it was the Spirit of God, and so then I was like, oh, I need to tell you because I was knowing that you would pass it on to her because I felt like she needed to hear. It would bless her and help her to hear it. So I texted you with it, and you could choose to do it with, you know what I mean. So it's just following the Holy Spirit of what to do.
No, we did exchange phone numbers so we could text with each other, and she was supposed to go to UVA today for an appointment, and she said, I'll let you know how things went. Well, I haven't heard anything. I haven't checked my phone, but I haven't heard anything from her. But I do want to check in and say, how did your appointment go?
Yeah.
And but I told her, I said, now we're meeting today. I said, we will probably pray for you. And I said, when we do, if God has me, share something with you that we're seeing, I will text you and let you know. And I said, I will continue to pray for you. And I said, as God leads me, I will share that with you. But I will only do that as God said, because if something comes up and He says, okay, I want you to tell her, then I will. But if He said, no, you don't need to, then I won't. Because she's in a different place.
Yeah.
I don't think
God knows. God knows whether the person can hear it.
I don't think they ever went to church or anything, but her mother is a really strong believer, but I don't think they had that. They didn't have a lot of teaching, and so. But God's definitely going after that family. I can see Him, what He's doing. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
So point number 1 on parts must be rescued is.
This is part of seeking God and being totally open to Him. Yes.
Okay, so it's not, it's not like, oh, well, do I want to rescue these parts or not? It is part of us seeking God and being open to Him, that if He points out a part, or if a part comes up in us, then that is part of that. It's not like this other thing that you can choose to do or not. And that's how some people have approached it. Because it's new, I understand, they didn't get it, but that's why we're making this point now.
And we have a responsibility when God shows you a part to go rescue them.
Right, because God's going there. It's not
He
one
showed
minute
it
there.
to you.
He is there.
That's
He's
his
already
something.
there saying, hello, I'm with this part of you, now you need to do your part in it. And so it is part of seeking God.
Well, sometimes in myself, the hardest part is figuring out who they are. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
when
yeah.
a part comes up, you go, wow, man, I feel
Yeah.
like this. Is that a part of me? And really have to ask God, okay, God,
Yeah.
where's this part? What's that
Right, and
part?
we're going to discuss that of what to
That's
do
the
when you don't have a response from your parts.
So when you identify them and God's helping you with that as you're following God, then the rescue's easy,
Right.
you know, compared to
Right.
the identification.
Right,
It's
right.
oftentimes
Right, at this
hard.
point, yeah. So number 2 is that God knows the order that the parts need to be rescued in. Okay, He knows the order, and that's part of us following God and being open to Him. We're going to say, oh, well, if He's going there, I'm going there. If he's going over here, I'm going over there. So just part of
I
following
just saw a
God.
whole bunch of parts and they all have these little cards with numbers on them and they know which one
Your
comes
parts,
next.
Your parts usually do have the numbers, yeah. Yeah, so
If somebody,
that's cool.
if, for example, on that prior person we talked about earlier, where you wrote that all down and
Right.
said all that, and the person doesn't go there, is that still open to, in other words, could that person still revisit that? If
Oh
it's
yeah,
old, or
yeah. At
is it-
any time, people can turn to God, and for, just like turning to God for anything, turn to God for
Yeah.
mercy, salvation, whatever. You can turn and go to
Probably
those.
harder to access the more cover-up is happening. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, yeah, you had to cover, and we'll talk about that in a minute
Yeah,
too. What
yeah.
happens if people refuse
Okay,
to go to the
keep going.
parts?
I'm sorry,
So,
didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah, but no, that's good. We're on the same
It's-
right track.
yeah.
Number 3, this is one of my pet peeves. It's not okay. It's not okay to keep them. It's not okay to keep parts as pets. Like
Or
again,
friends.
Our friends or this other me. It's not okay to keep them separate. They're not pets. They're not this friend. They're not this, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with this large part of me. I know it can be scary, but at this point, enough of us know about it and we can help each other. So we're not going to keep them as pets or friends or anything. They have to be rescued. That's God's plan and
Yes,
design.
that's
That's just how it is. Okay, number 4 is if you don't rescue them right away, the divide, conflict, and misunderstandings increase. Well, misunderstandings between who? Between the rest of you and the part. Okay, because now they're mad. Because see, the
Yes.
binoculars guy, he's like, what's she going to do? What's he going to do? Are they going to come and rescue me knowing that I'm here now? If you don't, then the misunderstandings increase because they have a limited perspective already. And they might think that you were the one who sent them away. A lot of parts
Yes.
do. You sent me away. You don't want me at the front. You don't want me with the rest of you.
You are the problem.
And yeah, and so you don't want me around, so I'm going to stay away. No, I want you around. I did, you went away and you bring them truth. But if you don't rescue them right away, then these misunderstandings and conflicts increase.
It's harder.
And they go deeper or you feel them stronger. We said that before. They are mad and rightly so. They're mad. They're like, here I am. One more person is going to ignore me and you, myself. Hey, what's up with that?
Yeah.
Okay? Okay, so that being said, let's talk about what to do if you can't rescue the parts right away. The parts of you right away.
Acknowledge them.
Go ahead.
Acknowledge them. Say, I hear you. Open up the space for them. Invite God in. Tell them you have to work now or sleep now
Oh, yeah.
and you'll talk later.
Right.
Make sure that you do and you keep your word. Don't just tell them, I'm going to get back to you later, and then you don't, because they'll get noisier.
Right. So that's a good, the sleep thing, because there's probably two, maybe more times that, well, there's other times if you were at a social event or something. So you're feeling apart. Well, you're at work. You have your responsibility to do your work.
Yeah.
And so you need to get this work done. So this happened to me all the time in those early years, and I was working in New York, and I was like, I'd be driving to work, and I'd be crying, bawling, and the parts would be coming up and talking. I'd say, I have to work now. I've arrived, and I have to work now. I hear you. Okay, I'm opening up the space, inviting God in. Please come in and help. But I hear you parts, and we'll have to talk later. Now, again, the last point is make sure that I did. So for me and my life, I did set aside time. I had to open up time. I had to stop doing other things in order to keep my word to say that night, or as soon as I could, to then go talk to those parts, write in my notebook what I say. Now for me, and I think this has happened for you too, when you do that, the parts are pretty satisfied with that because you've acknowledged them, you're doing something, but you are also saying, I have to work. So, or I have to sleep. For you, it's been a lot of I have to sleep. I have to sleep. Or it could be, like I said, it could be you're at a social event, you're in the middle of a party that you know, like what you guys do for your business. Like, I have to be the hostess here. You know, I can't go in the bathroom and cry right now. You know, I have to, and that's what I need to do in this event. So you just acknowledge your parts, open up the space, invite God in, tell them, hey, after this party, we'll talk, but I hear you. And so that's what you do if you can't rescue them right away. But this waiting a week, 2 weeks, 6 months, or people that say, oh, I hate my parts, or what was that other lady said, I want to kill my parts. I want to kill my parts. No.
Or leave them in the road and run over them.
That's like,
Really.
Or leave them as pets.
Leave them as pets, and here now this cute little part of me, and
And that was good, Sherry. I just want to affirm you to just that time, because I am not used to rescuing my own parts and was obviously really overly dependent on Karen for some time. And I still really don't do it to myself, but that cabinet girl thing, that whole situation, it was sweet because God did visit me at communion, invited her out of the cabinet, and we came out to the snack blanket, and so we were hanging out with Jesus. And so when I was praying with my buddy Judy, not knowing precisely what to do, it's like, good, they're all just sitting there having the snack, and Jesus was almost like nodding, like, got them, safe, nursery, no one's checking them out, like, here. But when I came here, that was the full rescue, and that was too long, but because I was so cognizant that they were all hanging out with Jesus. Glad, safe, but not really resolved.
right. But you were doing the best you could. So this is people who are refusing and saying, I know what to do, or I know who to call, and I'm just not, because I'm not going there. I don't want to hear from them. I don't care about you. But that's not you. You were like, you were doing your best. And so if it took a couple weeks, and a lot of times see that whole network, you might not hear from more in the network until a couple weeks later, or a couple months, or even longer. But that's again, God knows the order, so then He's in charge of it. So that's not a worry for you. You just respond to what's happening right then.
Right, and it takes sometimes an odd outside trigger to make all these things happen.
Right.
And it's interesting because I think in the earlier time for me, when there was a lot of prayer and God had them in a certain place where they were receiving truth, or they were hanging out or whatever, then I would pray. I think I learned this from you, Karen, is when they're ready, then you can come forward and join the rest of you. However, I do find now it seems like there's another step of prayer sometimes after they're getting truth. Sometimes God will have you go back and get them. There's something else they need to be able to come and join the rest of you.
Maybe a more full perspective or something like that of what happened.
Well, this part of you needed more truth.
Yeah.
She needed more truth, and and there were memories attached to that, so there was more there for her, like the whole bathroom scene and all that came out. So there was more that she was holding on to, that part. So she needed to be able to express that, and we needed to acknowledge that in her, and then she was able to get free.
It's so important to do. I mean, I know just from the practice and whatever that you all can do these things to yourself, but in community it seems so much, it's so easy because you can't read your own face. You can't hear yourself, as well. And it's just so cool, like when it was you, me, and Judy, it's like together you observe different things, and you watch body language and you can see more.
Right.
But if it's yourself, you're used to you, and you don't observe anything really big unless there's a huge emotion that you're like, where did that come from?
Well, we pray that God opens that up for you, because it's different. Those were good examples you give, but if you can see the other person, you're seeing that body language, you're seeing different signals. But and God's showing you those. But within yourself, it can be super clear. It can be super clear. So we're asking God to open that up.
Yes,
we're opening that up for you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but you're learning so fast, and you're going so fast. So you're doing great. So we're just asking God to open that up, and we're opening up and asking Him to give that to you. So it'll be super clear for yourself. Yeah. because it's just, it is a combination of you rescuing your own parts and someone else helping you. It's just, if you're totally relying on someone else or someone else is helping you, it just goes so slow. I mean,
It does, because then you gotta wait for somebody to call you back and.
Yeah. What to do if you know there are parts and they don't respond?
Okay, well, this is for me. Are we
Yeah.
gonna get the slideshow too? Okay.
Keep opening up the space. I know sometimes I've done that over and over and over again. Invite God in, and sometimes you have to
Sounds
continue to invite God in.
right, well, that's the point here, is that, just to back up to say, there's something going on in you, and you're like doing everything you can, and yet you can't identify them, you don't know how they're feeling, you're not hearing them yet. You've gone through that a whole lot. And so you've already opened up the space, but you keep on opening it. You invited God in, you keep on inviting him in. And that's not
Right.
that's not without effect. That does something.
I'm just laughing because if you're I'm telling this to myself, I'm laughing at the tell them there's no rush. I'm like, come on, I'm ready. They would be like calling the BS meter. There is a rush, I feel it.
But I think what that does, I know with mine, they've been so deeply embedded,
Right.
to say there's no rush, and they go, oh, okay, there's no rush, and then they're actually more eager to come forth when you let them know there's no rush.
Even if you're lying.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to.
But what you just did is that relaxing. There's no rush. So there's this pressure on
Pressure's off.
parts to come forth and be from this point in this dark, deep cave to the front part or to the
Right.
middle. And there's this pressure, and so that makes them tighten up more.
Yes.
But what you just did physically, you went, there's no rush. Oh.
Yes.
So when that relaxation comes, you're getting
can open that
unstuck.
You're getting unstuck.
You're getting unstuck, they come forth more quickly, but some parts are going to take some time, like what you're going through now. You're so open to God, you're willing to go there after what came up. But what I see happening is now all these things that you talked about at lunch, okay, and now those are all pieces of it. So be encouraged that this is all oh, wait a second, what's this? What's this? What's this? What's this?
I feel God's timing all over this, all over it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
so
I don't know what to do with it, but open up, this is good, invite God in, there's no rush.
you're trying to say that? Yes, and the oil of truth will loosen things up too and bring that truth in because they don't know the truth.
And it's interesting that yesterday, when David and I were praying on the way home, God showed me this new oil. I said, oh, isn't that cool? Because I saw the walls, but in these walls, it was interesting. It wasn't like, because sometimes I just see like a straight wall or like walls made out of brick or stone or something. These walls were in mesh, like they were made of like wires and mesh and everything and intertwined, so they were meant to keep out. And God said, pour in the oil of loosening. And I said, oh, cool, we got a new oil. So I started pouring it in, and when I did, all this stuff that was tangled up just started to open up and got really loose, and then it just fell apart.
Yeah.
Because it was all intertwined. So I see that with the here too, the oil of truth brings truth to the parts, but then so they can understand what's real and what's true. Okay, so what's true about God, what's true about their situation.
Right.
But the oil of loosening will actually loosen things up so they can start moving. So I'm eager to use the oil of loosening on my parts because I have a lot of those parts that take a long time to come
That actually
forward.
reminded me of that verse in scripture, whatever I bound in heaven is bound and whatever I've loosed, that
Oh,
is
yeah,
His
that's
oil, it's the
cool.
loosening on earth.
That's cool.
I also I don't know if this is a tip for anybody, but I've really gotten into this practice at night before I go to bed, armoring up, first of all, just a spiritual armor, and then I just ask God to, how He says that He, can visit you, or first about the sleep, like work even when I'm sleeping, that He would do that, and so sometimes I'll have dreams that will, and I ask Him to just to go closer, to open up
He does a lot.
I
Yeah,
open
you're
up,
right.
I open up my.
Well, not in your sleep.
I open up my mind to you this night, because
Yeah.
this is unconscious, and if you need to do any work
That's
here
good.
with my
That's good.
birds here, like, I'm open to you and I just trust you as I sleep, come
That's
as
good.
close as you need to come.
That's
All,
good,
you know,
that's
like
good.
that. And then sometimes, you wake up to go pee, and then I'll just say, no, I do it again, I just walk to the bathroom, come
That's
back
beautiful.
again, come close, Jesus, please come closer.
That's good,
Teach me
Deanne.
everything I need to know. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'll even have waking thoughts. And the first thought or music is something that I needed to know or that will help.
Mhm.
And believe it or not, he even used, I can't stand Led Zeppelin song. Last week I told you about that. Did I tell you? I told
Yeah, I
you.
think you
Anyway,
did.
with my son, I was like, what the world is this song? And I said the melody, read it. It's an entire song about the Father and the future. And I was like, dang, son, I mean, God's over all.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just that he does.
That's good. That's really good. That's an important point. God does a lot while we're sleeping. A lot of processing happens. And even if you felt the part sort of that night, and then you just are open to God by the morning, you might start hearing from them, which is, after the oil of truth, oil of loosening, which, and also like the oil of expansion. Any oils you want to put in there,
Oil of
that's
real.
good. Yeah, oil of real will bring that reality to them. So also to rest in God. Okay, with all that going on, we're going to make sure we rest in God, which remember that a couple months ago we talked about actively participating with God, but also being in the rest of God at the same time. So that's an awesome thing, to be in God's rest, but also actively participating with them. So everything we've talked about so far is active participation. We're also going to rest in God because, again, He's leading. He knows what order to do everything. He knows how to get every part of you loosened and ready to come forth. So we're going to rest in God and trust in Him. Our confidence is in you, God. And then the other thing is to listen for them. Mostly parts you'll hear them you'll notice them in yourself by hearing the thought that you say, oh, that's just my thought. Then you realize, wait a second, that's a thought of a part of me. Yes, it's my thought, but it's a thought of a part of me. And mostly you'll hear them first before you see them in yourself.
And then you get really good at recognizing them.
Right, you recognize it. Like you can say, who just said that? Who did that? And they'll start peeking out from behind and say, oh, it was me.
That was me.
But they'll give you these cool signals, either through dreams or stuff like that, and you say, who is that? I'll say that. I need to put that on the list, so thanks for bringing that up. Who is that? Who said that? You can just ask, and you'll get a response sometimes. Because again, they want to be...
cover-up that you said in another video about, show yourself.
Show yourself.
Show yourself.
Show yourselves. Yep, show yourself. Who just said that? Who wanted to buy this?
I'm
instead?
here.
And that's their goal is to be heard and to be safe. So if you're providing that for them, then they'll start speaking up. Okay, here's what we just mentioned before, is what happens if a person knows about parts but refuses, and we're talking about an outright refusal over time, not like, oh, I feel tired today, so I got to take a nap instead of going to these parts. I'm talking about knowing about parts and refusing to go there, to go to them as God leads. What happens? This is not something we've made up. This is observation. It's sad to see. We were sad to see it, but it's true and it's real. So we want to make sure everybody knows about it. Is that first thing is that they go backwards. They go backwards. You want to say anything about that?
And they don't like when you tell them they go backwards.
Yeah. And what I mean is I actually see that where they had progressed to with God and with their life, you actually see them go back to different stages before they got up to here, and they were going backwards to the way they were acting and thinking, and even the things that they're doing in their lives, and then they keep on going backwards. And it's really, it's regressing. It's really
Sad.
alarming, sad, bad that they're actually going backwards. And then on top of that, they are stuck even more. So you're going backwards to where you were, but now you're stuck even worse than you were before you left that place the first time.
Yep. It gets more difficult for those around you.
And that's kind of what we were talking about before. You still can turn around.
Oh yeah, at any time. At any time.
But it's harder.
Yeah, at any time. And you can go, oh my gosh. And we've had people say that to us, wow, I really left going to parts for a while now, and now I feel really bad and stuck. These are exact words. I feel really bad and stuck. Can you pray for me? Oh, yes, let's pray for you. Got them unstuck, got the parts going forward again, and then they can keep on going forward, or they can not. But that's up to that person. But yeah, that totally happened. The person said, I feel stuck. I've gone backwards. Can you help me? Yes. Can God help you? Yes. Yep. Sure. Next thing is?
Confusion.
Yep, so it just goes with the whole package. Then you're more confused. Why? Because you're refusing parts that God was going to, so then those parts are, that whole misunderstanding thing increases, the conflict increases within you, you feel confused, and then you're like, well, I want to serve God and I want to do what He has for me to do. Okay, go to the parts like He's leading you to. Well, I don't want to do that. Well, I want to serve God and do what He has me to do. Well, now I'm confused because now I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing. When God showed you, you know, and to fulfill your destiny, where He wants to take you, where you want to go with Him, you got to go to these parts. Well, now I'm confused because now I'm not doing that piece of it, and I think that I should be able to get away with not going to parts. This is a new day. It's a new day, and once people find out about parts, this is all going to be required of them too, right? Okay, so if a person refuses to go to parts as God leads, they have to live even more on the surface. It just gets worse.
That's sad.
It gets worse and worse.
And you're like, what happened to that person? They're really, very surface.
Right, and this is not a judgment here, but there was a break in their relationship with God.
Yes.
Why? Because God Himself, not me, not Sherry, not Deanne, not anybody, was leading them to go to these parts.
Yes.
When you're refusing to go there with God, to do anything with God, then there's a break in that relationship. There's something that's gone wrong, and you're going backwards even in your relationship with God, and that's what we've seen. Not good. Okay, turn around.
And it could look, I think the word authentic needs to come here, because there can be an observance from the outside that everything is fine with God.
Right. Oh yeah.
But it's just the actions, and I think you find this so much in the church with people who are there and they've been doing all the motions of God, but have not done this sort of wellness track. And they, get to the age of whatever, and they're just so hollow and like no joy. And it's like John 10:10 said, I came to give you a life and to have it to the full. And I think that means all the parts, the fullness of God moving forward.
Right.
And most people are just like hollow sitting there.
Yeah, it's sad. That's why God's coming to and bring this understanding. It's good. Okay, leader of rebellion.
What has the enemy done, and what is he doing?
And for you.
He's taken advantage. Yes, he does that a lot. He builds systems and strongholds.
Okay, we're talking about through the years. Right?
Yes, through the years.
From birth or before birth through the time, present time for the person.
And it happens within yourself, and it happens a lot of times in your mind.
Right.
So when we rescue parts, we see the enemy in there and
Yeah.
what he's done.
I just want to make clear, this is not connected to the previous slide where we're talking about people refusing. We're just talking about in general, as we're going there with God to rescue parts, what has the enemy done and what does he do?
He tries to rob, steal, kill, and destroy. And I just want to say too, the parts suffer under that. With the enemy, he's very scary to the young parts of us. He distracts, he brings down, he'll stop or stop you.
Try to stop you, try to distract you from your destiny, try to bring you down.
Tries to break you and keep you trapped.
Right. Very hard to fulfill your destiny with him doing all this.
Yes,
So
he's a pain.
he's a pain. So how do we deal with the enemy? Look at the screen.
Kick him out the door.
No words necessary. A picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yes, I love that picture.
See how
Get out.
easy that
Do that again, Sam.
Get out.
is? Yeah, that's right. Get out. Just kick him out. Cut
Stand
up his,
right back to where you came
cut up his head. Run your sword through them. So when you're rescuing parts in yourself or in other people, look for this. Ask God. He'll show you. You said
will
that
show
earlier.
you.
Just say, God, please show me what the enemy's doing here. What systems he's built. And sometimes God will show you without you even directly asking, because we're totally relying on Him and He's leading. But I always hear you say that, say, where's the enemy right now? And or God will just show you. And, and so you run your sword through him, cut off his head, just kick him out. It's not a contest between him and God. God's way stronger, and we're with God and we're stronger, so we're just kicking him out. And so we do that all the time.
Yeah, and yesterday when we were praying directly with this gal, I saw the enemy. I saw him just like appear, and I said, "Oh, I see the enemy in here," but I didn't know what he was doing. Sometimes I'll see it, but I said, "Okay, God, now what's he doing in here?" And so it was really because of all the things that she had suffered when she was younger. He got a foothold in there, and he started building systems and things like that. So I just cut his head off and kicked him out. But that was, I saw the enemy, God showed me the enemy, but then I had to ask God on top of that, what is he doing here?
Right, because you had a sense that was wrong. So look at that list again. So you were seeing the strongholds that were built there, and systems. So a lot of times I'll see a system, I'll say, oh, I see the system of the enemy here. It looks like to me like this big metal structure or this big combobulated structure that has someone locked in some way. It usually looks kind of disjointed and messy, but really strong. And so you say, oh, I'm dismantling, I'm taking that system of the enemy apart. Do I have to know all the details about it? Nope. If God wants to show me, or if there's something important, God will bring that up and show you like a specific. But if you see a system, just take it apart. I'm taking apart these systems of the enemies.
Right.
And a lot of the truth that we bring is to say, oh, this is what the enemy's trying to destroy you and steal from you.
Right.
I'm not going to let him. I'm going to get between you and the enemy, and I'm not going to let him steal from you. That's not fair.
No, not fair at all.
Et cetera, et cetera. So, any questions or comments about dealing with the enemy?
I just think sometimes just the actual Word of God about the armor is helpful in this whole action to armor yourself, or like cover yourself. Like that one time, and after I've been praying in the night for God to meet with my father, I woke up and I just saw the system in my home that I was tired of, and I just stuck my sword right in it. Just like stop, stop the spinning, stop it, right,
because you had it with you.
Just woke up, after that.
Yeah, you had it with you, and however God leading you on that. I have heard people talk about putting on the armor before, and I used to do that a long time ago, and then I was like, why am I doing this? I've already got it on. I didn't take it off.
That's what happened to me too.
I didn't take it off, and so I just I've already got it on. So my sword's always there. The helmet of salvation's always there. But if that's what's working for you and God has you doing, as you build that up, that's fine. And if you always do that, that's how He's leading you. That's fine. But for me, I finally said, wait a second. I'm not taking it off anytime, so I'm just always on.
Right, yeah. But you are right. At the same time, I think sometimes when you get kind of like talking to your part, like where are you, what are you doing, it's important to be mindful of what you have, and sometimes you forget because you're just in the...
Yeah, I think that's a process.
And you're still reacting to the systems that have been in place. And it's like...
And God did that with me too, and it was active until I think I really grasped the whole thing of, hey, I always have the truth, I always have, the salvation, and so it's kind of like a process I think that God teaches us, and then it's just become such a part of you that you don't even have to think about it anymore.
Right.
A few more.
Is that us together, or is that?
No, that's God and you.
Oh, that's God.
Look at the book they're reading.
You plus God, okay.
You plus God books, together forever. You plus God wins. And also on the back cover, God and you rescued together.
I also thought maybe it was like me and my part.
That could be, they could be reading the You plus God book. It could be anything you wanted to be. But for me, it was, I wanted to show a picture for this right here is while we're rescuing parts, you're always relying on God. We said that, but I wanted to make its own slide, its own picture, so that we can really emphasize that there is no way to do this, that I can't do it without God. He does it so specifically. Yes, there are secular counselors that try to do something to help hearts of people, but that is really slow and tedious compared to what this is, because I've seen both. and expensive, and you're done in an hour when, yeah.
And all they
So-
do
Parts are
is bring
still
it
talking.
up.
Yeah, they're bringing it up.
Feel it, they bring it up to talk about it, that's all.
Yeah, yeah, but some
I mean, some people-
even know about parts and they're trying to help. It just is laborious, and plus the thing is that when parts need to connect with God, if the person doesn't know how to connect them with God, then the part's not connecting with God. It's just crazy. So we're relying on God. He does his part, and you do your part. Okay,
Yes.
this is how God's chosen it to be, for better or for worse. That he's going to partner with people in this way to rescue parts. He's going to do everything he does, which is awesome. And you got to do everything you got to do. Okay? And you do this together. One of my favorite words is together. Close. Okay? And key principle, if you don't know what to do next, ask God.
Yes,
You
always.
just ask God. I know that's come up with you, Dan, because you're in that huge learning, fast learning stage right now. And we talked about that the other day. It's like, I don't know what to do next. Well, you just ask God. You don't hear us do it so much anymore because I've asked him so many times
Yes.
in the earlier years that now I either know or it's like a standard question that I've got up there. Asking you God, asking you God, asking you God. But even the other day, I think when we were praying with Judy in the car when it was raining, I said, God, I think I asked God for understanding. Well, I don't know what to do, but don't let that ever throw you off. You're not out there alone. You're not doing this
You're
by
never
yourself.
alone.
You're relying on God. He's going to always show up and do his part. He's already there doing his part. So if you don't know what to do next, you ask God.
And there were times when I would pray, like over the phone with somebody, and I'd just be quiet and I'd say, I'm just waiting on God right now because I'm asking God what comes next. And so there would be some silence, but I would always tell that person, I'm waiting to see where God's going next or what's next.
Yeah.
And so I didn't rush myself, feel like I had to fill in, because I
Right.
think you feel like you have to fill something in, and I just say, okay, I'm just going to keep praying. And sometimes I just pray in the spirit,
Yeah,
because I
pray in
wouldn't
the
get
spirit,
the next
yeah.
thing, and then the next thing would come.
Yeah, and I think God takes you through that, like, I don't know if it's a testing or if it's a teaching, that he lets those gaps be there so he makes sure that we are relying on him. So that's part of the training, is to make sure we're relying on him. I have no problem with saying, I don't know, let's ask God. We're going to ask God. I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what this means. This picture
Right.
means, God, what does this mean? What do we do about it? I don't know. And when you do that, you can't lose. Okay. Now, in the context of relying on God, here are some of the elements that may come up during rescue. Okay?
I'm eager.
Eager for what?
To
Eager
see
them?
what's next.
Oh, okay. Remember that you're dealing with a real person here, real hurts and pains, real and devastating suffering.
Yes.
Okay? Often in a place with that person, with a part who has never been addressed before,
Yes.
not by someone who cares. Okay? They might have been addressed by an evil person, or the enemy themselves, or the abuser, or someone that was mean to them. But since they went away, nobody has addressed them and opened things up. So we're going to be very gentle, very, very careful, very loving. It's a real person. We're not formula. This is not method. And so all of these things, that's why we're saying, here's some of the elements that may come up, because who's leading the whole thing?
God.
God. Good answer. God.
I know.
God's leading the whole thing. So these are different elements in no particular order, okay, that may come up. And it's kind of like we want to mention them so you'll know about them, so you can know, oh, okay, God's leading me to do that. We talked
So
about it.
you're entering into real sacred territory as every person's.
That's a good way to
God's
put it.
image. It's like sacred ground.
Yeah, that's a
And
really
it's
good
for
way to
someone
put
to
it.
be able to, for God to
Yeah.
open up something so secret and precious, it's like.
Impersonal.
Yeah. And you may know the person that you're praying with, or this might be you, that you and God are praying, or rescuing parts of you, or you may not. So to be able to go into that deep hurting place with someone that you don't even know, but God just led you to them, that's really special, and none of it can be taken lightly. And so I'll let you just. Well, you always open up the space, and what we mean by none of this is just words. This is that. When God first showed me the parts of me were so tight and all tangled up in this small
You have to
space, and
open
when
up
He
the
brought me
area.
into the large space, there was room for all of me, and everything could get sorted out. So without having to come into that large space per se, I started seeing parts tight down in those prisons and the caves wherever they were. And so you open up that space so they have more space because they're crowded. They're like sardines a lot of times.
And what I found too with that is you can feel parts or somebody else can be feeling parts, but until you go in and open up the space, a lot of times you won't hear from them.
Right.
You won't hear what they're saying, you don't know what they're about, but they feel them, or I felt them. I go, okay, I'm gonna open up the space and I'm giving you plenty of room to be who you are, say what you wanna say so I can hear what you're saying. And so that opening up the space gives them permission to then, let you know who they are.
Right, because they had to, when they went away, they had to be so isolated, so separated, so hidden a lot of times so that more bad wouldn't happen. So they got into a small space and that was comforting in a way, but then ended up being not comforting, not good, not healthy. Okay, this is very key.
Oh, you need to go to the place where they are. So we do this a lot, with each other. You say, I feel these parts, the parts are upset or whatever, and I say, okay, I'm coming in there with you.
Right.
Or you do that with me because you really have to be in there with them so you can understand what's going on, so you can see. It also gives you a place to see their perspective of, wow, it's really dark in here, or wow, it's really cold in here, or I don't like it in here.
Right.
So it gives you that perspective of knowing what they're experiencing. God shows you that.
Exactly, and you don't know it until you enter in there. Okay, that's been my experience, right? So you open up the space, feel something, you open up the space, and then you say, I'm going in there. Okay, and I think you did that with me today, Dee. I don't know, earlier when
We did that with
praying and I
Mom,
was sharing
went behind the wall with her.
Yeah, went behind the wall with her. So it goes with the next one is to sit with the person, okay? So again, there's not this big rush, come on out of there, hey, what are you doing back there? What are you doing behind that wall? Get out here now, but you're gonna go to the place and sit with them to just sit and just relax and not have there be all this pressure.
Well, and they've suffered so much that sometimes you just being there scares them, or they think you're there to hurt them, and it's like, no, I'm just gonna come in and sit with you. I mean, if you don't want to talk to me, you don't have to, but I'm here.
Right.
Because I don't want you to be alone.
I remember when Karen first prayed for me, and she saw me and she's like, come forward. And I was like, I can't move, I'm frozen. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that, but
I was frozen, and I couldn't move forward. And she said you said there was a wall of glass, and you took it down, but then you came in there to get me, and you saw that I was standing like at the top of the steps, and there was nowhere to go, because if I moved at all, I would have fallen down the steps. And fallen off.
So that's part of her being in there with you. She could see what was happening.
Yeah, it is really cool because it's like once somebody enters into this space, they can make observations that you can't observe, and that can be done in the spiritual realm, but it also can be done in the physical realm. So let me stay with the first thought was when you rescued me the first time, you're like, so what are you doing in this basement, Dan? And I just turned to you, it was like, I had no mouth. It's like, I can't tell you. We got a problem here. Let's put on a mouth here. So then it was just, it's obvious what you need to do next. It's like the girl needs a mouth. They're like, yeah,
right.
You got to be unfrozen. Like she's got to do a meltdown. But in the physical, sometimes you can see these things, the reactions, or what is happening that needs comfort. A tick that might come up and this is what I'm talking about from the story sort of workshop. You can observe someone's face and just repeat back what you're seeing.
Right.
And their face, wow, I'm seeing you're really, if you're in person with the person and not on the phone. Like, wow, I hear this, I see that. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And you, because you hear a lot of parts, I think that's important for you when you're praying for somebody one-on-one or seeing them in the physical. But I believe God's going to give you more pictures, because a lot of times with pictures, you can see those expressions in the spirit without having to see the person.
Right. That makes sense. I will turn on lights even though. Oops.
Are we getting in the dark?
We're getting way, and I usually let that go, but suddenly.
I also want to bring up that I know I've had parts like this that they had so much cover up that anybody in there would just shut everything down. You remember those parts of me? So Karen had to, I mean, I didn't tell her right away, but she had to come in very carefully, and I told you, the parts actually told her how to
Yeah.
approach,
Right.
you know, and it's like, okay, that's far enough.
Yeah, you said you can come and stand by the door, by the wall, but you can't come any further, so that's what I did.
And then she'd
Again,
keep talking to me, and then they'd let you in a little bit
It's
further,
a
so
sacred area.
that's why you don't rush things, you have to be.
Yeah, that's an issue, so I've got a part that rushes everything, so I gotta handle her first.
No, we want to rescue her first, not handle her. We're not keeping her as a pet.
Yeah, she's like, get me out of here, what are you waiting for?
That's a test.
Yeah, we're not going to rush her to come forth, but we're opening up the space for her. So we don't have to handle her, we just want to go. This is true, I'm not just saying this because we wrote this here, but it's like we're coming in to sit with that part of you that wants to rush everything.
Well, she's running in circles, I see her, just,
Oh my gosh, I was telling Dee, I can't even do one thing in my yard and just sit down and talk with somebody. If there's like a picture behind them that needs to be straightened, some deadheading of flowers that needs to, there's always something that needs to be done.
Yeah. Yeah,
Can't stop it.
that's a lot of pressure.
There's not a lot of sitting down happening.
well, I just came in there with her, and I sort of got in her way, and she had to stop.
Is that
I just
nice?
stepped in there, and she's like, "Where'd you come from?"
We're all here, we're all coming
Yeah.
in.
And, you know,
She's like, I don't know about you guys.
I got a to-do list. I gotta go, look.
yeah, and even though I've stopped doing to-do lists, I still putter. I can't be still.
Yeah.
And I actually wrote this to myself, and I'm sure this is the part writing it down. I said, Deanne, you are always in a hurry.
Because if you stop,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Bad things
what
happen.
bad things happen when you stop?
Right.
oh, she said, when I stop, bad things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, see, now she looks like the age you are, like your age now. But when I said that, I saw her go back. She went back to, she's about 3 or 4 years old. She had to look like an adult. Yeah, bad things happened when she stopped.
I'm sorry, they happened.
She's part of your memory.